I'm Wildlife Conservancy, and I'd like to welcome you for tonight's program. And I want to thank you for joining us today. Before I introduce our speakers, I do want to thank first our partner in presenting this program, the Loudoun County Public Library, and to also tell you a little bit about the Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy, who is jointly sponsoring this program with the library tonight. The library is an incredible resource for information, for books, and for programs. If you visit the library's website, you'll find out how much they offer. And if you drill into their event calendar, as I do occasionally, you will see an incredibly wide choice of possibilities of programs to go to. The Loudoun Wildlife Conservancy's mission is to preserve, protect, and restore wildlife habitat through community engagement. Um, the reason Mountain Wildlife does this is the greatest threat to wildlife worldwide is loss of habitat. We believe that wildlife and the natural world enriches our quality of life and that we have a responsibility to ensure that wildlife thrives. We work in 4 different areas: education, scientific monitoring, habitat restoration, and conservation advocacy. While we have some paid staff, almost everything we offer, most of which is free, is done by volunteers. We work, as I said, in education. Besides programs like this one and many kinds of field trips throughout the county, we have a quarterly newsletter, the Habitat Herald, copies of which are over here on this table here, and a highly informative website, which is full of information. Our next Habitat Herald is due out in a couple of weeks. Please pick up a copy of one of our older newsletters before you leave tonight, or read it on our website. One of the other areas we work in is scientific monitoring. We believe everything we do should be based on sound science. Because of that, we organize and participate in several citizen science programs, including stream monitoring. We have a Bluebird Box program, which not only provides bluebird homes, but also gives us a tremendous amount of data on how successful bluebirds are in this county. We participate in the annual Christmas bird count and the annual summer butterfly count and several other scientific projects as well. In addition to that, we do a lot in habitat restoration. We work with others to protect and restore habitats throughout the county. We encourage homeowners to plant and protect native trees, shrubs, and other plants because that's what wildlife needs to thrive. Any habitat that we can preserve or convince others to preserve not only saves wildlife, but helps mitigate climate change, one of the greatest threats all wildlife faces today. We ourselves own and protect and steward the J.K. Black Oak Wildlife Sanctuary. It's an 89-acre parcel in the Lucketts area that contains a globally rare wetlands and is home to numerous amphibians, 2 kinds of fairy shrimp, and numerous other species. It's a great place to live. It isn't open to the general public, but we open it up for walks periodically, and I encourage you to get by and see it sometime. The other area we work in is conservation advocacy. We encourage our local government and local businesses to practice and implement policies that protect, benefit, and enhance wildlife habitat. We were the lead organization in the establishment of the Banshee Reeks Nature Preserve 25 years ago. One of our part-time employees is a conservation advocate who works with local government and volunteers to protect the remaining valuable natural resources that are in this county. If you aren't already a member, please become one and help us protect and preserve wildlife. If you want to know more about us, pick up a copy of the Habitat Herald or one of the other publications on the table, or visit our website. They're all a wealth of information. And now our speakers. We're going to have 2 speakers tonight, and I'm going to tell you who they are right now, but then we'll kind of just segue from one to the other. We're first going to hear from Julie Borneman, who is the owner of Watermark Woods Nursery, which is in Hamilton, Virginia. And Then we're going to hear from Sherri Bartlett, who owns and operates the Wild Birds Unlimited store in Ashburn, Virginia. I think you'll find that they both have a wealth of information and are great people to listen to. And on that note, Julie, if I could turn it over to you.
Right. You guys ready? I was telling somebody earlier I haven't done a talk in a while, so I'm so excited. So look out. Uh, I'm gonna I'm gonna put some of this on you guys too. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Because I don't want to talk the whole time. And so if you answer a question, you get a duck. I have a few of these ducks. And it's not any ordinary duck, but they're very rare ducks. They say Watermark Woods on them. And you can either keep your duck, or if you come into the shop, you can use it for $5 off at Watermark Woods. So answer questions, and you can get a almost squeaky duck. So thank you, Joe, for the nice introduction. And thank you to the library and to Loudon Wildlife. You guys are all very smart for taking advantage of these programs because there's such a wealth of information. So this is a cedar waxwing feeding on, I'm not sure what kind of a berry, but he's having a great time. And this is a great way to take care of birds in your yard by planting. I'm a plant person. I am not a birder. In fact, one of the first meetings that I went to with Loudon Wildlife Conservancy, they were talking about some bird, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, yeah. I was so faking it. And I don't know the birds in my yard. There's Fred, and there's George, and there's Susan, and that's about as far as I go. So I'm not a birder, so bear with me if I misidentify birds or if you know one that I don't know. I want to talk a little bit first about the Loudon Wildlife Sanctuary program because it's a great way to get started planting for birds and encouraging all wildlife to get into your yard. And it's a very simple program. It's not hard to do. There's 3 main components. One, you have to attract 10 of 35 or 36 species to your yard. They have a list. And if you can attract 10 of those to your yard, the animals have decided that you've got a great place to live. The second part is to take the Healthy Yard Pledge. And you can read there, or you can go on their website and figure out what the Healthy Yard Pledge involves. But basically, you're going to be better than you were. You're going to try to plant natives, you're going to conserve water, and you're not going to use pesticides and a few other things. And then also they want you to report back and let them know. It's a partnership. Building habitat is Loudon Wildlife's mission. And so they want to partner with you all as homeowners and people who live here to have more habitat in Loudoun County. So it's an amazing program. There's no cost to you unless you want a sign. You can buy the little sign that says Wildlife Sanctuary. So check that out on the Loudon Wildlife website. And in the Habitat Herald, there's some great stories by BJ and Nam McCary, who both have changed a lot of their yard into habitat. And it talks about their successes and their failures because it can be challenging at times. All right, why do we plant for the birds? What makes birds special? Why are we having a whole hour about planting for the birds? So there's a couple reasons. One, birds are intriguing. Like when you see something flying, that really sparks an interest in people, in kids. Kids are always like, look up, there's a bird. And also a lot of birds are indicator species. If the birds aren't healthy, it's an indicator of something else. So, we plant for the birds, for the food web, but we plant for ourselves also so that we can enjoy the birds. I want to talk a little bit about reducing pesticides because that's probably one of the biggest things that you can do in your yard to benefit birds and all wildlife. And when you think about like what things eat as they go up the food chain, every organism that participates in the food chain uses up energy. So when, a cricket eats the seed, it uses some of that energy, and then something else eats the cricket, it uses more energy than something else eats that mouse or whatever. But it's kind of the opposite when it comes to pesticides. So if you put something on your yard, you think, well, I didn't put a whole lot of it on, I just wanted to kill crabgrass and it's not going to hurt the birds. Well, think about this, right? So a cricket maybe eats 10 seeds, so it's getting 10 grains of pesticides. Let's look at it this way. So there's a mouse, it's eating the seeds. The dots are the energy that the mouse gets from the grass. The plus signs are the pesticides. So the grass has got 5 there. The mouse, when he eats those seeds, it's multiplying because he's eating multiples. Then the snake eats the mouse. And the snake's not just going to eat one mouse. He's going to eat many mouse and crickets or, whatever snakes eat. I don't know. So, and that multiplies. And by the time it gets up there to the predators, the hawks, the eagles, look at how much pesticides now have accumulated. So that amount of pesticides, even though there wasn't very much on that long grass, it's grown by the time it gets to those predators. And that's why we see bald eagles dying. And, they find lead poisoning and they find DDT and things. So if you can reduce or stop using pesticides, that has a huge impact. It may not seem like a lot to you, but when you think about it in the food chain, it's huge. And a lot of those things that eat things like the grasses and a lot of the things that people think of as weeds are things that feed caterpillars or the soft squishy things that birds and that need to feed their young. So this is the chickadee. And if any of you know Doug Tallamy's work or have read him, if you haven't, you should. And did some research with some of his students, and they found that a chickadee feeds its young. Does anybody want to guess how many? If anybody gets it right, except for you law malt like beehole, if you have a duck. So how many insects in one day do you think a chickadee would feed its average nest of 5 babies? Any guesses?
2,500.
Not 2,500. 140 in one day? Nope. 5 chickadees. Anyone else? Yeah. There we go. You're very close. It's between 200 and 500. So, yeah, I think just if you think of that, right? That how much pesticides, if that caterpillar has fed on something that's been treated, and now it's feeding that to its little bitty babies, how much pesticides are going into those little things? And if we don't have birds and caterpillars, if we don't have caterpillars, we're not going to have birds. If we don't have birds, we're not going to have other species. So we got to watch this stuff. We've got to be careful. And Talamy also says an oak is the one species that you should plant in your yard if you have space for it, because an oak feeds more species than anything else. The butterflies, moths, lepidopters, those soft swishy things that they need to feed their young. So Sherri's going to touch on a lot of this as well. I'm going to touch on it from the plant side, and she's going to touch on how you can make it happen in your yard. But everything needs food, water, shelter. Those are the basic needs of most organisms. So we're going to talk about water, shelter, and food. So everything needs water to live. We need water. Animals need water. They need clean water. This is the pileated woodpecker. Pileated? I don't.
Take those for it.
Okay. So if you've ever seen this bird, this is like a giant bird. It's prehistoric when you see it. And I'd hate to see those go away. But you can, if you have a stream in your yard, cleaning up that stream on our property, we bought it 15 years ago now, and we had a stream. We had a lot of things contaminating the stream. We had fuel oil barrels and that were leaking into the stream. We had with so much stuff, so much debris. We cleaned it up. Took us 4 years to clean it up. And we get it all cleaned up, and we've got this bird, and we've got so many other things using that stream now that it's clean. So clean water is imperative. So whatever you can do to keep clean water. There's a green heron using the water. I'm not going to talk too much about water because if you've got it, great. If you don't, Sherri's going to tell you how to get it. Get water in your yard. I think is this it in...
This is Bless
Park? Yeah, this is a Loudon Wildlife. It says right there, Bless Park. All right. Shelter. Why do we need shelter? This is where you can make a difference. Planting things for shelter for the birds is really important. This is a great slide that shows different layers in your yard. So they need all these layers. The ground cover, you're going to see robins, sparrows, things picking up caterpillars from out of the grass. Then all these layers support different birds, right? And so they need these layers. They also need tracts of land so that they can get from one layer to another. If they've just got like an island of trees, how are they going to get there without getting eaten by a hawk? So we need to plant continuous barriers. You can do that in your yard. You can plant along your edges to connect to your neighbor's yard and make corridors where they can move through. Shelter, this is my yard. This is my husband back there. Fills these bird feeders. There's like 6 of them. and each one has two things coming off of them. He religiously fills those up. But uh, right here is a pussy willow tree. And I can't tell you, you can sit there in my kitchen and look at that pussy willow tree any point in the winter, and there's usually like 6 or 8 cardinals sitting in there waiting to go to these feeders over here. And these are some old maple trees. So they go from here to here and back and forth. That's their stepping stone. If we didn't have those layers there, they wouldn't be able to get here without getting eaten. But, and I will caution you, if you do put up bird feeders, we love our bird feeders, you're also putting up something for birds who eat birds. It's just that natural progression. And if you plant something with berries for the birds to eat, you're planting something where the hawk come and hunt. So just be mindful of that. I think it's very cool to sit there and watch the hawk, and the other birds will warn them and then they scatter, or, and sometimes he gets one, and that's kind of cool too. And there's feathers everywhere. It's circle of life. But, it's interesting, you can learn a lot. And right here is another really cool little catch that we've got. This is aster lavis, or smooth aster, and it blooms white. And it volunteered there, and it's now about 10 feet around, this patch of asters. And I can't tell you how many pollinators are there all summer long, and I'm out there taking pictures constantly. I have more pictures of this group of asters on my phone than I do of my children. So, and they've been around a long time. So it's fabulous to plant these things. If you plant it, they will come. And when the pollinators are out there, you'll see things come on, pick them off. The birds will come by and eat little things flying around. And then my house is right here, is my porch. So I sit on my porch and I watch these feeders and I watch that. And this is Rose aromatica, which is fragrant sumac. And this is a species called grow low. So it's a cultivar that stays short. And I like it because it's the front of the house, so it stays a little lower. But it's another great place for the little birds to hide. The nuthatches and the chickadees will all sit in there. Bob and Frank, as we know them at my house. And they hang out there to get to the bird feeder. So they hang out there when there's berries on those plants. So it's multi-level, what's going on there. There's a lot of food in this area for them, both artificially and naturally. And, it doesn't look like a whole lot there, but it is just alive. And it's so entertaining to watch. Oh, look at there. See, I didn't realize that was a video. A hawk came. And they all flew away. So I have so many videos of this thing. Another thing is to leave dead trees up, because a lot of times that pileated woodpecker that we saw drinking out of the stream, they make these big holes, and those big holes are just the right size for so many birds, like bluebirds and whatever. And sometimes you'll see flying squirrels in those, so not just birds. But it's important to leave that dead wood up there as homes for other birds and wildlife, but also for insects, because the birds need to eat the insects. A lot of birds can only feed their young caterpillars, those squishy things. So they can't feed them bird seeds. So we need to have everything available to them. And places to nest. That pussy willow that I showed you before, it has a nest every year. The last couple of years, it's had a gray cat third in there. And if you know anything about them, they've got all these multiple different songs. And they just sit there and sing all day long. And it's always different. And they're loud. It's awesome. So there's a bluebird house. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I know Sherri will. But then also, are those bluebird eggs? No? Just a nest. I don't know what kind of eggs they were. Probably a photo I picked up somewhere. So there's 2 habitats here. The one on the left is lovely, right? It's a nice green forest, lots of trees, maybe for some nesting birds. The one on the right looks like a jungle, right? Which one are we going to see more birds in? I'll shoot into you first. You ready? Oh, looks like a baseball. Yeah, so the one on the right, 100% of the time you're going to find more stuff, because as we talked about, there's places to hide. There's nesting places. There's more food in there. So, as much as you can add, it doesn't have to look like that. It doesn't have to be a mess like that. It could be more like my yard and have little areas. where they can jump from thing to thing. But you're going to see so much more life there on the right than you are on the left. And the left is pretty, don't get me wrong. A lot of forests look like that. But when I see a forest like that, I think it's not a healthy forest because there's no layers. There's probably deer in there because they've eaten away all the understory. So, it's just another way to look at forests and look at your yards when, if you back to woods or you own woods, just something to think about when you're looking at stuff like that. So, non-native versus native plants. Does anybody want to give me a definition of them? I mean, you can kind of read some, but almost have it duck. Otherwise, I can just tell you. So, non-native plants are usually brought here by the landscaping industry or some well-meaning somebody who used it as packing material, or the DMV thought this would be a good plant or insect to fight something else or erosion or whatever. So a great example is burning bush or winged euonymus. It's beautiful, right? Beautiful, bright red fall color. Landscapers love it. It doesn't look like anything the rest of the year except fall. It's got green leaves. It's very nondescript, but they fruit a ton because this is not where they're from. And you'll find them, they find them all over the place in the woods. Russ Nature Sanctuary, that you've been hiking there, it's all over in the woods there. And it's not native here. It has not evolved here. It cannot feed anything. And the same with multiflora rose. Multiflora rose is a little bit different. I mean, it does look pretty in the fall. It's got red. It's got pretty white flowers. It smells a little too sticky sweet for me, but it's got the rose hips that are on it. A lot of wildlife will eat it, and it's not the right protein, nectar, sugar that they need at the right time of year. So it's like eating junk foods. So when you can feed them natives that they've evolved with and they learn how to digest those things, it's so much healthier for them. It's like the difference between feeding your kids McDonald's every day or a nice balanced diet every day. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the food. So I just talked about a little bit about the difference between natives and non-natives. And these, I know you can't read. They're very hard to read. But it's a good reminder for me. So the oak here, this is probably outdated. It says it supports 534 species of Lepidoptera, which are the moths and the butterflies. Whereas things like ginkgo, which is a non-native tree, supports one, and they think that that one is maybe a fluke, that it just happened to land there for a rest and it wasn't really eating or anything. But also when you look at things like the different berry producing plants. So our native ones, they support tons and tons of birds, especially anything with a little berry on it. And the fat content is like 50% in bayberry, whereas when you look at the non-native clematis, or I don't know why eucalyptus is on there, they support just a couple of species. This one's 118. So it is important, and you get more bang for your buck, because if you're not feeding things with your landscaping, it's dead. You're not doing anything. What's the point? It's pretty for us, but isn't it great to think that your landscaping not only could look pretty, it could also feed things and could reduce pollution, runoff, and shade your air conditioning unit so your bills are lower. So then it's smart. Does anybody get these in their yard? Yeah, gross, right? When I was young, my dad would go out there, and we had something like this. I grew up in the Midwest, but they would go out there and burn them in the tree and just light it up and get rid of it. But we now know, right? This is bird food. This is the eastern tent caterpillar. It usually happens like in the crotch of the tree, like cherry trees, a lot of the fruit trees. It does not hurt the tree. These caterpillars will completely defoliate the tree, but it usually happens at a time of the year when the tree can bounce fat from it, because the tree and these caterpillars have evolved with each other over millions and millions of years. And so they know how to handle that. The caterpillars eat all the leaves, and the tree's like, no big deal, I'll just grow some more. It's spring. So they grow more leaves, and then, a ton of birds have eaten all these caterpillars, and the world is a great place. So do not destroy those. I think there's a fall webworm also that looks like that. There's spring and a fall. All right, so we're going to talk about a few of the different species for birds. Winterberry is a great one up here. That might be what that first slide is up. It gets red berries all winter long until the birds eat them. And it's really striking if we get an early snow with those berries against the snow. He's a photographer, so striking. And then serviceberry is another one of my favorites. I do have handouts over here too with some of these plants on them. So you're welcome to those handouts. So serviceberry, also called Juneberry, we can eat it. The birds love it. The bees, it's great for honeybees, even though they're not native, but our native bees will pollinate it as well. Here's what the flowers look like. There's what the berries look like. There's a few others that we can, viburnums, which are, there's a ton of them. Arrowwood. I can't even think of them all. Blueberries. I want to show you guys this one. All right, this is good opportunity. Does anybody recognize this plant? I picked this today. What do I get? What's that? It is coneflower. Yes. So this is coneflower, and there's a ton of plants in the coneflower family. So there are the rudbeckias, which are black-eyed Susans or brown-eyed Susans. It's kind of interchangeable name. Purple coneflower, which is not truly native here, but everybody sells it as a native. But this seed head is all it's all seeds. So if I put this here, this is just one seed head. I'm gonna pass that around. Okay, on the seed, you can just pass it around. That's the seeds from one echinacea. So that is a ton of seeds for that one, from that one flower, and each coneflower is going to get 10 to 20, and the birds will eat them. And the coolest thing is that if we get a snow, and it's a particularly deep snow, all that food that was on the ground, they don't have access to anymore. But these things stick up, and so they can eat them all winter long, which is fabulous. And I lost my train of thought. I'll come back to that. Okay. So I'm going to show you this plant right here. I brought a bunch of it. And it was blooming today. And as soon as I put it in a little vase here, I tried to give it some water. It just wilted. But I'll pass these around, and the flowers are up here. This is what they look like, right? Beautiful. Smell it. Crush some leaves, smell it. Pinch some of these little things up here, the little where the flower was, and you'll feel the seeds in there. Some of them have already been eaten by the birds. It's called, does anybody know what it's called? Nobody knows what it's called? I have a picture. Okay, and it has blue in the name. It's not a bluebell. It's an annual. So it completes its life cycle in 1 year. However, it's a hardy, when you feel those seeds, there's probably 8 or 10 seeds in each one of those things you're going to pitch. And it's seeds all over. I planted one in my yard, and we have it everywhere now. It's going, and I love it because it gets those cool little things. And this is last winter. Watch this video. Those are dark-eyed juncos, and they were all over it all winter long, eating those seeds every day for about 2 weeks. It's called forked blue curls. So we don't sell the seeds for it, but we do sell it. And we don't have any now. You have to wait till late spring, early summer before we can sell it. But it's a fabulous bird feeder, and it's cute as can be. And it's seeds all over the place. So if you got little holes or spaces in your yard, it's a great thing to fill in. What's the name of it again? Forked blue curls. The Latin name is very long, Trichoschemia dicata something. Not 100% sure what that one is. A couple other good berries for the birds are beautyberry, American beautyberry, and we know it's American because this berries or the flowers go all the way around the stem. If they just poke out from the stem, then we know it's not American beautyberry. This one is a Viburnum dentatum, I think. So I have it down here. I do not. And I want to say that is our native sunflower. I'm going to do one more of these. Does anybody recognize this one? The flower's done. You recognize what that is? No. Not milkweed. Nope. I got a duck that you can do it. It's so hard. I told you I was going to make you work for it today, right? Do you know what it is, Beijing? I think it's wild petunia. Not wild petunia. No. Nope. So it has yellow flowers. There's still some that have flowers on it. And I'm going to... Not a goldenrod. It's a late summer bloomer. I'm going to cut one of these open so you can see how many seeds are in one of these things.
It's not one of the tick seeds.
It's not a tick seed. Ooh, I spilled a bunch of seeds. Okay, come on. Okay, well, I'll pass that around so you can see how many seeds are in there. Can I see the leaf? Yeah. Oh, wow. It's got an oblong leaf. Pointed, light serration. It's sundrops. Oh. And they get tall. They get really tall. But great bird food. Look at all the seeds in there. And then the grasses. I mean, grasses, they stay upright. And when we're talking about all these plants, if you can leave them up in your yard and not cut them back in the winter, then you've got all this bird food. And there's a lot of insects that will overwinter in their stems. So I've got a grass seed up here. Anyone want to guess the grass seed? This is a really common native grass. Loose stem. Yes. Here you go. I'm going to throw it at you. You're not looking. So we're going to breeze through some of it because I think I'm running over my time. But grasses, any native plant you can plant is likely going to have seeds. So before I let you go and turn you over to Sherri, I just want to say, remember that at one point, 95% of the United States was habitat. Only 5% was habited by Native Americans. And today, only 5% remains, but it's primarily in parkland. So if you think of even, all those huge parks that we have, that's only 5% of our land. So we need to be responsible and we need to make our yards be nature. We don't want to always have to go to nature. We need to cohabitate with nature and bring nature home to us, which is a tagline for a great program, the National Wildlife Federation, if you want to look it up. So wherever you see lawn, it was likely once habitat. So remember that even if you can replace a small amount of your lawn with or plant one native plant, you're making a difference. It's hugely important. So well, I'm going to turn it over to Sherri. We'll take questions when Sherri's done. And while you're getting set up, if anybody did not sign up for the drawing, if you want to sign up for my website and the drawing afterwards, let me know. I can give you cards. And I'll tell you, one of the common questions that I always get is, what can I plant for hummingbirds? This is jewelweed, which is a little yellow or orange flower. And a lot of people say it's jewel for the orange and the flower, but it's not. So I don't know if I can do this without losing it all. So I'm just going to I'm making a mess. I'm sorry, Lorraine. So I'm going to put one of the seeds in here. Oh, that one's not ready yet. Well, this one's not ready yet either. So I don't have any seeds that are ready. I thought maybe I did. But if you scratch open the seed coat, it is this bright teal blue, like the splash, like your coat on the inside of the seed coat. So if you scratch off the green part, you get this really bright blue seed, and it's very cool. And that's the jewel of jewelweed. And hummingbirds love it. They will feed on jewelweed all summer long. And it's an annual, but it's a hardy self-seeder again. If you plant a jewelweed, you will always have jewelweed everywhere. And it's really fantastic for hummingbirds. Yeah. Are you all set? Yes. Waiting to...
Yeah, I think I just need to switch the thing here. So, for sure, but I think you just unplug me from there. Do you want to please see like joints?
That would be you feel free to throw ducks at people if they do your way up.
everyone. My name is Sherri, as they said, and thank you all so much for coming. It's really nice to see so many faces and some familiar faces I recognize too. And thank you to the library and to Joe. We always are thrilled to be asked to do these kinds of programs, and we love getting the word out to all of you. Um, Julie always does such a great job talking about native plants, and I always learn so much from her presentations. And she has talked about, all of the important stuff, to bring birds naturally into your yard, and that is a big. That's always going to be the best thing to start. The best way to start. You always want to start with native plants. I'm going to just talk about some of the supplement ways to attract birds with feeders and so forth. Uh, let's see. I'm going to see if I can.
Season my hair smells really. I get a drive for you.
Oh, you know what? Well, should be set up to do it, but if not, then
Do you see next? I can shoot.
Okay, yeah, let me this year. This is kind of the
There you go. I got it.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. I said take the text. I might be needing that later. So before we get too much into that, I did want to mention the wellness benefits of birds. We all know that it's just we love watching birds, but there's been some studies come out that it's called ornitherapy. It's a real thing, and it actually has now shown that watching birds and paying attention to birds and listening to bird song actually will reduce your stress and lower your anxiety. So it's actually a heart healthy thing to do. It's benefits you and the birds when you pay attention to the birds, which I think is just wonderful. We kind of already knew that in a way, but to have it scientifically, there's scientific studies now that actually show this. It's really exciting. So I will have some information at the end that will give some of the references for this. If you want to know more, just feel free to ask. And by the way, any of these slides that I'm showing, you might see in the hobby guide, which I have handed out. And if you don't have one, there's some copies up here too. And we also have a wonderful website that we try to keep chock full of information. So that is on what are these? The back of the hobby guide. The website that's on the top, the back, that's the one to use. And it has a lot of good information about just references that I'm going to make tonight. So by increasing the diversity in our yard, it sounds like we're also going to be increasing our well-being based on this information. So just to give a little review, Julie talked about this, of course, food, water, cover, places to raise young. Those are all really important things to have in your yard. You want to think kind of like a bird, like what's going to make me want to go in that yard if you want to attract them. And without these things, the birds aren't going to want to come. If you were a bird, would you choose to come to a yard that's just open with nothing growing, no place to hide, and no food to offer? Probably not. So you have to kind of think like a bird when you're thinking in terms of providing ways to attract birds to your yard. I've added sustainable practices here because I think it's important to make sure that you're, not using pesticides, and Julie touched on this as well. Just making sure your yard is environmentally friendly and not just manicured for the sake of being pretty to look at. So important to keep in mind. And I won't go through the natural foods, but I will point out that, again, it is always going to be a supplement, anything that we put out for the birds to eat. What they get naturally is going to make up most of their diet. And during hard times, like in the winter, it is really important to put out, I think, supplements for those cold nights when the birds sometimes have to, they might lose, they lose huge percentage of their body weight, and each bird it's different. But on those really cold nights, they have to wake up in the morning and refill all that. They need fat, they need protein. Um, so having those native plants available and then providing supplement is all going to help with that. And by the way, if you can't hear me, let me know. I tend to talk very softly, and I do have a microphone up here, but I'm trying not to use it. So just raise your hand if you can't hear me. It's really important that you pay attention to what is in your bird feeder, no matter where you buy your food. Not all bird food is the same. There's a lot of blends out there that add fillers to make it look like a big bag of bird seed. And those fillers are often milo, which is different than millet, wheat, grains, things that the birds do not want. It's not even food, and it's just going to be kicked to the ground. It's going to sit there and be a mess. So you want to make sure that you have ingredients in the blends that you buy, such as black sunflower and striped sunflower, safflower, peanuts, sunflower chips, Niger, things that are actually going to benefit the bird. Because if the oil is what the bird is really after most of the time in these seeds, if the oil has become rancid or is spoiled, there's going to be no nutrition for the bird. So you want to make sure that the bird food is fresh and that it is a quality ingredient. And this is one of the pages in your hobby guide. I think it's page 8. And this might be a little overwhelming to, not everyone's going to have this bird feeding setup, but it gives a good idea of what a thoughtful bird feeding station might include. It has all the elements that you kind of look for. There's vertical landing spots for those birds like woodpeckers that prefer that, either fat feeders. I'll go into that a little bit. There's foundational feeders that can sustain many days of worth of seed in them. There's water offered, and there's some baffles here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. There's landing places for birds. It's really nice to have some perch branches, these little metal supplement or natural branches. Birds like to have a place to light before they come to the feeders. So having some options for them to land on, and also being near trees and bushes so that they have a safe place to go to, but not maybe right next to the bush that a cat might be hiding in. So you have to kind of be aware of where you're placing your whole systems and feeders. I'll go into some of these in detail, but here's a list of some of those. And by the way, the hobby guide, the numbers are those big numbers at the top of each page. So it kind of goes through what some of the options for a thoughtful bird feeding station would be, and it goes into more detail in that book there. Kind of start with the hopper feeder. That's one of our foundational feeders. And it just is this little house-looking feeder here. It holds a lot of seed, and it's nice, especially in times of like winter when birds really can benefit from having food supplement in. It's nice to have a place that they know they can go to. So having this foundational feeder pretty much always filled in your yard is a nice way to start. And then adding other elements such as the tray feeder here, which is actually a really neat thing to have. It catches the seed from the hopper in this case, but it's also just the birds feel very safe going to those feeders because, they can see predators from all around. And so trays are a nice way to go. But any kind of hopper feeder that can hold a lot of seed is the first thing. And here's another hopper feeder with a cardinal and a tufted titmouse, two of our favorite feeder birds. All right, so one of the specialty feeders is a suet feeder. These suet feeders have a tail prop. That's what this little paddle is called. And it's used, you can see how in this case, the pileated is pressing his tail or her tail against the paddle there. And that's what they do when they land on a tree, right? Woodpeckers land typically in a vertical position. So they use their tails to stabilize themselves. And by providing a feeder like that, that's what they like. So, and also it's the fat that's in the feeder is important. The suet here is typically, it comes in different forms. These are like the square cakes, and they are primarily made of rendered beef fat. So it's high in fat, and there's also nuts and berries and different ingredients added. And that's going to really be wonderful for the insect eaters. The suet takes the place of the insect eating. Here's another look at the tail prop feeders. I like this one because it really shows the difference between the downy and the hairy woodpecker, two of our native species. And they are very similar looking, except for in size. The hairy being much larger. You can really see the difference here on the same feeder. You can see how cold it is there in the winter heat. Winter is coming, I guess. A few more suet feeders here, this is just a log with some holes drilled in it, and the suet is stuffed in. Pileated loves that as well. Over here we have the little cups that hold like suet balls. So even the birds that don't land on vertical feeders can get these little balls, and they love it. Cardinals love it. Chickadees, nuthatches right here. So many birds love the little suet nuggets. The suet is a great thing to cook out, especially in the winter, but even year-round. And bark butter, one more type of suet. Bark butter is a spreadable suet, and you can put it right on the bark of a tree. No feeder needed. So just put a little spot just with the back of your fork and just do that in the same place. And the birds will learn to go to that same spot, and they just love it. They love bark butter. I think over 160 species of birds have been documented to have eaten bark butter now. So it's a popular item. It's kind of like peanut butter, but better. You don't want to use peanut butter with salt, by the way. That's important. One more specialty feeder. The finch feeders are going to be specific for the goldfinches, and the house finches will come. Any birds that have the tiny little beaks that can, this fork here, it's a really small hole, and so it keeps the bigger birds from coming to those feeders. It's just like a goldfinch feeder only, pretty much. And there are, pine siskins as well. Any bird that likes Niger or the sunflower chips, this is a great thing to put out for them. And here's a couple styles. We have the mesh or the regular perch style. This is the goldfinch. Here is the goldfinch on the left. Here are the goldfinches in summer, full plumage, I guess is the word I'm saying. Kind of zip. Seed cylinder feeders, one more way of feeding the birds. Seed cylinders are just packed seed and nut cylinders. They literally are just seeds, nuts, fruit, and they last a long time. A lot of people will put them out when they go on vacation, and the birds have to work to get each little piece off. So it allows for longer viewing time for you because you get to see the bird working at it. And then little woodpeckers love that. They just cling right to the side. This one has a tray as well. So there's some bark butter bits in addition, which are those little suet nuggets, in addition to the seed cylinder. So it's a nice tidy way of feeding, a nice option. Many people are surprised to learned that peanuts are a great thing to put out for the birds, but they love peanuts. You see these same woodpeckers, the tufted titmouse. You can put peanuts out in the shell or out of the shell, and it's just a real high fat, high protein food. So great for birds. The blue jays love the peanuts in the shell. You've never seen that. It's really fun to see. Like I'll even put peanuts out on a railing sometimes, and the blue jays will come and just decide which one they want, and it's really fun to watch. And right now, there's a lot of caching going on, the behavior of caching, where birds will store foods for later use, and the blue jays love to cache those peanuts. Here's a blue jay with a peanut. They'll try to, put a whole bunch in their prop at one time, and they fly off, and it looks like they're eating a bunch, but they're really just storing it and then flying off and storing it in different places. One of the most asked questions at the store is probably, how do we keep squirrels away from our feeders? And we love our squirrels, but they like the same food that birds do. So it's just a matter of time usually before the squirrels try to get up to where the birds are eating. And even if you've never seen squirrels in your yard before, so once you put food out there, they like to come up there. So we prefer the weight activated ones as opposed to the battery operated. They're just less maintenance. They're not problematic, and they're not all made the same. High quality squirrel proof feeders do exist. There are some that are not high quality, and they will fall apart very quickly, as you might have already experienced. But the squirrels are very heavy, so they'll weight, pull down and close these ports so they can't get any food out. But the birds are so lightweight that they don't activate that mechanism, and they can just eat right from there. So it's a great way to put out food and not have to worry. The squirrels will get on there, but then they'll eventually have to just jump down. They can't get to the food. One other way I'll mention about keeping the squirrels away is hot pepper foods. Squirrels are mammals like people, so they're very sensitive to the hot pepper. There's been tons of studies done, and hot pepper does not harm squirrels, nor does it harm birds. It's just a way of keeping the squirrels from eating the food, because birds don't have that same receptor to taste hot pepper. So by putting out food that is really hot, it has to be very hot to keep the squirrels away. Can't just be a sprinkle of cayenne. So that's one really good way to try to keep the squirrels away. Again, I don't want to be down on squirrels because we love squirrels, but they can really take over the bird feeders. So these are just some options I'm throwing out, the ways to kind of combat the squirrels a little bit. Let's see. Yeah. So one other way is, and my favorite way, is to put a baffle on a pole and have all of the feeders above the baffle. And the baffle has to be properly placed. It has to be 10 feet away from any surrounding fence or tree or house that the squirrel could potentially jump from. So it has to be 10 feet away and 5 feet high. So you want a pole that's going to be tall enough to accommodate the feeders and still have a baffle. And but if you can do that, it is a wonderful way to have all the feeders and have the birds come, but not have to worry about the squirrels. And all of this stuff we can talk about at the store too, if you want to come visit. I know I'm briefly going over things tonight, but we're all trained at the store, and we can talk to you about any of these things.
The window strike zone.
Yes. Yeah, the window strike zone is something else. That is, so when you're putting up a pole, you don't want to have the pole in this zone here. It can be either 3 feet or closer to a window, or 10 feet or further. because if the pole's in this this area, there's a chance that it could be a hawk or something could startle a bird, and it would get up enough momentum to really hurt itself if it went into the window. But if the pole is right next to the window, or if there's actually window feeders on the windows, um, ideally, I mean, there wouldn't be enough time for the birds to be startled and then get up a lot of speed and run into the window. So that's why, but having it far away, it's far enough away they can like see the window in time and close enough that they're not gonna hurt themselves. So try not to put the pole in this area. That's what that means. Is that any questions? No, they go. Okay, so cages, one more way to enclose your feeders and keep the squirrels out. Also, bigger birds. A lot of people put these up to keep starlings and grackles away during, especially the spring when they're really aggressive and they like to come to the same feeders. So people will put these up, and the small birds can just go right through those openings of the cage into the actual feeder. And it's a great way to keep squirrels and larger birds out. One more look at baffles here. I think that it's on the last page of the hobby guide too. There's a wraparound baffle here, which it literally wraps around the pole. You don't have to take the pole out of the ground, and it wraps and connects on one side. And then this one is just a little more of a sleek design. I don't really like the placement of this feeder, actually. I would have the bottom of this above the top of the baffle, because if you get it too far down, the squirrel is just going to come up and jump right over there. So it's better to have that a little higher, but this was the picture I had. So really good to have a nice strong pole system to start out if you're just starting out with bird feeding, or anytime really. These are powder coated steel, auger right into the ground. They're very modular, and they're going to be tall enough so they can accommodate the baffle and then the feeders, hanging above that. So and you can kind of mix and match, create your set station that you want. All right, so one other way to use your pole system is to hang a blueberry box. And we always recommend having a baffle under a nesting box on a pole if possible. It really helps to prevent not only raccoons and squirrels from crawling up, but also snakes, because they like to get into the birdhouses. And like I said before, the window feeders, they actually can help prevent window strikes if you have a window feeder on the window itself, because it shows that there's a surface there, and you don't want birds to think that, we have such a problem with the birds running into windows, as you've, I'm sure, heard. So anything that you can do to obscure the window and make it look like it's a surface and not just a fly-through area that the birds can go. And by having a window feeder, plus it's really cool to see the birds up close and personal. A lot of people will put hot pepper foods in here because often the window feeders are in a place where squirrels can access. So you can kind of keep the squirrels away by doing that. All right. So hummingbird feeders, we're just at the end of hummingbird season now, but it's a wonderful way. Make sure you don't use red dye in your hummingbird feeder, and always clean your feeder very often. And that goes for any feeder, by the way, not just hummingbird feeders. Always clean your feeders frequently. It's part of responsible bird feeding. We like to emphasize that at the store a lot because it's really important. So just a few more feeders here. Okay, so yeah, Julie talked about water a little bit. Water is just so great. It's such a wonderful way to bring birds into your yard. Birds that don't normally even come to feeders, such as raptors or warblers. They'll come to bird baths. And there's all different kinds of bird baths. You see here there's some plastic, there's ceramic, there's aggregate concrete here. Um, and the ones that can withstand the winter, I think, are really nice. So you don't have to switch bird baths, but there are some like this concrete aggregate ones that they freeze and crack pretty quickly. So you don't want to keep those out in the winter. But there are metal ones and different ones that you can put out year round and they're not going to crack. Here's another way of just adding some sort of movement to the water is going to attract birds, whether through a drip mister kind of a thing or a bubbler or a fountain. We have some different options at the store. And it's really nice to get those birds that might be passing by and they hear bubbling water and they come check it out, which is really enticing to the birds. The hummingbirds love flying through the mist. And I've even had my hose out before, watering some plants and they'll fly right through. I love that mist. Make sure you're cleaning your bird baths just like you clean your feeders. And the bird baths really have to be cleaned almost daily. Having a dedicated brush and some of these that they just lift up from the base of the bird bath. So they're real easy to clean. Just dump the water out and you can do a quick swish with the brush and fill with fresh water. That's going to be great because, there's droppings that get in there. Birds drag things in there. There's going to be seed. They're made to bathe in. So, you don't want to have water standing in there for too long. You want to make sure you're keeping it clean. And there's all different ones. The height is important. It's nice to have these tall ones. It's better to keep birds away from predators. But there are lower varieties as well that some people use, and even on the ground itself. And you want to make sure that the bird bath that you use is shallow and has a gradually sloping sides, and a textured surface is even better because that's going to keep birds from, not getting in too deep and not slipping, and you don't want them to drown in a too deep of a water, which can happen. You might have seen bluebirds in the winter. They just love to go to a bird bath. I don't know what it is about bluebirds in the winter, but they might not come to a yard all year round until the winter, and then all of a sudden they show up and they're in the bird bath. So great way to get bluebirds in your yard. All right, the heaters. We offer different ones at the store. There's heated bird baths where the entire bath is heated, or like there's a supplement of just a heater that goes in an existing bird bath. But they do require electricity, and there's not really a solar heated bird bath that I know about that's very effective. So something to keep in mind. Having the water wigglers is good. It's just a little battery powered device that keeps the water spinning, keeps the mosquitoes from laying their eggs in the water. So yeah, a lot of people will add rocks to their bird baths and they'll provide different depths for the different size birds. So, and here's a little kind of yard that I think kind of shows what we've been talking about. There's a lot of native plants. There's some feeders. There's a water source here. There's trees. Like birds would like coming here. There's a lot of shelter. In fact, I would like going here. I wouldn't mind sitting right there. So this is kind of an ideal yard. But I do want to say you don't have to have a huge yard to make a big difference in bird feeding, in helping birds and also to attract birds. You can have a balcony. A lot of people that we see at the store they live in apartments or condos, and they put out little feeders on their balcony or hang them or have a window feeder. They have potted plants, and that is a great thing to do. You can still enjoy birds. And finally, I like to these are some actions that you can do to help save the songbirds. Saving the songbirds is one of our missions at the store, and we really feel strongly about, getting this word out. There's 7 simple actions you can take, and really even more than that, but it breaks it down to things like keeping your cat indoors and planting native plants, um, even watching birds, because by watching birds, you're going to become interested in birds and then want to know about their habitat and where they, come from and what they eat and all of that. So, in reducing your use of plastics, we have a lot of recycled plastic feeders that we sell, like made with recycled milk jugs at the store. So those are some things um, to do, and I'll just leave you with this nice saying, which I just think really kind of sums everything up. And um, please feel free to ask questions, and I'm sure some of you will have questions. Yeah.
What is bird-friendly coffee?
Bird friendly coffee, yes. Um, that is, well, it's actually an important thing because when birds migrate, they, they go to places where there's a lot of coffee grown. And if those trees have been cleared and there's no place for the birds to go, um, that's a bad thing. So by planting bird-friendly coffee, that means the coffee is planted underneath preferably native trees so that the birds can roost and have a place to go when they migrate, and the coffee can be grown underneath. So drinking shade-grown, bird-friendly coffee is a way to help, you know, bird conservation. Um, and yeah, any other questions? And Julie you can join me up here. I'm sure you have.
The Smithsonian has a site about the bird-friendly coffee
Oh, great.
where you can buy it. Julie still sells it. It didn't work out for you.
Well, we have sold it in the past, and we often see them continue, but um, it's it's one of those things that's perishable, and we really want to sell it, but if we don't sell it all, then we're kind of we struggle with that. So I'm not sure if we're bringing it in this winter or not, but definitely there's places you can buy the bird friendly coffee. Like the Smithsonian is a great reference. Yeah.
And we open a couple days in November for holiday shopping, and our bird friendly coffee will be on sale then because we close down for winter, so you can get cheap.
Ah, even better.
But I will say, like, Sherry's very modest. When you go into Wild Birds Unlimited, their staff is really trained. They can help you with, if you don't know what you're doing, and same with us. Like our people, like you, we have people that are very passionate about our people.
Yeah.
And our people are passionate about birds and wildlife and the environment as a whole. So wherever you go, you're gonna get great information. And I don't know about you guys, but we get people all the time who are just like, I'm just gonna come hang out, or they'll bring their lunch and have lunch with us just to hang out, top plans.
Wildlife. Yeah. People call it their happy place. And they, they're in their happy place and they can shop and see. We talk about birds all day. So it's like heaven for us, and for people that like birds, because we just show pictures and videos of our birds, and it's a fun app.
Yeah. Yeah. So just even if you don't, you're not ready to buy stuff, just to hang out and you'll learn a ton.
Yeah, I bet. Thank you for being it out, because we do. We have our certified bird feeding experts actually at the store. We all go through a process to become certified. And it's not just someone ringing up the sale. Like these are people that are trained on what, how to problem solve, how to help you get something set up in your yard, how to attract certain birds with putting out certain feeders or foods. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
You have any questions?
Is there a point, or there not a point of having to worry about like balance when it comes to putting out like for feed and stuff like that?
Well, usually no, I mean, it's always going to be a supplement. So you don't have to worry about it. I have people with, 3 or 4, 5 pole setups in their yard. Sometimes people will do like a reset and just bring everything in for a few weeks because maybe there's a lot of hawks. Like, once the hawks find that this is a good place for bird, feeding, I can come and look at these birds that are feeding from feeders. or whatever the reason is. So some people will just reset by doing that, but it's really up to you. It's always going to be a supplement to putting out for food, you know, for compared to what's out there naturally.
And if you're going to have feeders, you got to commit to it, right? You got to keep them clean, as make sure you got a high quality seed. Because, like, Chris, how often do you fill our bird feeders? Like every 3 days?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've
And
got,
depending on the time of year.
Yeah.
man, you got every 3.5 days. So
I mean, that's a lot of bird seed. And we'll go on vacation, or you can't get to it in 3 days, or it's rainy or something, so they don't get filled for a few days and they're empty. And they find it, they come back, they eat what's in the woods and what's out there, and then they'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah, people
think of bird feeders as a crop, and a crop, a plant that's seeding or something like that, and it's going to stop at some point. It's going to have its own season. And I think what happens is birds are perfectly comfortable when you go on vacation and disappear as they move to another source. I think the key is what Sherri said about responsible feeding, so that, you're not setting up something where the cats can easily get their meals, or the seed can get, moldy and unhealthy for the birds. And the key with that, you're going to be fine.
But I think hummingbirds, they might. Like, if you don't put their food out there and they're back from spring, they'll like get in your face and they're like, where is it? We are here. Eat us.
the birds will let you know. They'll come just up to your window, like looking in, but you don't. Doesn't mean you have to fill the feeder every time it gets empty.
Yeah. Where can we find instructions for cleaning bird feeders?
Yes. Well, I believe we have a video on our website that's on the back of that book there. If not, we talk about it in the store all the time, and we can direct you. Some feeders are harder to take apart than others, but we are always happy to help show you how to do that. There's videos, like there's certain squirrel-proof feeders that have their own, websites with those instructions on them. So, we can just get with us and we can tell you how. But just soap and water is mainly just hot soapy water, and then scrubbing them, letting them dry, rinse it, and then filling them up once they're dry. Sometimes you have to bleach a feeder if you see mold on it. There's like a 1 to 9 or 10 parts bleach to water that you can use, but you don't always have to bleach it every time you wash it. So
And how often are we up to?
it depends. We say several times a year. Ideally, like once a month would be great. Some people do it more often than that, and some people don't do that. And we really encourage you to do it at least once every season, quarterly. Ideally, it would be more often, though. Yeah, think of eating. Like, we don't want to eat on some, dirty plate or anything. Like, you want clean. And the birds know when the feeders are not clean. They stay away. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Is a QR on page 3 to a video.
Oh, thank you.
For planting, if we wanted to plant some of the native plants for this winter, when would be the time to start thinking about that?
Winter's a great time for planning, right? And I know our website's got tons of information. And there's also links to other websites where there's information, planning, and sample plans. If, you've got a place in your yard, you know exactly the measurements or whatever. And spring is a great time to plant because that's when we're all trained to plant. We're all jonesing to get out there after winter, even cooped up all along and dig in the ground, and Mother Nature's going to water for us. But fall's also a great time to plant because the plants aren't worried about putting up a flower and new leaves, and I gotta be ready for pollinators, and there could be a drought coming. So they're just focused on root growth. So fall's a great time to plant too. And then when spring comes around, they're ready to go. So spring and fall, landscapers plant all year round. Summer's hard because you gotta water. So almost any time, but yeah, when it works for you, when you can care for it.
And you had a question?
So if you put out seeds and they get a little old or moldy or something, would the birds still eat them? We get sick, or they wouldn't?
Right. They probably wouldn't eat them, but you wouldn't want to keep them out there just in case, because yeah, they can get sick. Now, birds, yeah, you want to make sure you take that in and thoroughly wash the feeder, throw those, throw that old seed away. And if your bird seed ever is rancid or smells bad, or, you just toss that and don't use it because, um, yeah, it's just, you don't want to risk getting the birds sick.
We've seen some birds with the eye disease, with the swollen eyes.
Yeah, there's definitely always, there are illnesses out there for sure. And that by cleaning your feeders, you're doing a big part of helping to prevent that. By putting out feeders, you are bringing the birds closer together. So there is going to be that, you know, potential, but they have that in the wild too, the flocks that go together, the goldfinches and so forth, and some are more susceptible to certain disease than others. So, just being a responsible bird feeder and not just sticking food out and letting it, go bad and not clean, making sure that you're caring for that feeder that you put up is important.
Do you know of landscapers that are in tune with this stuff, the layering? Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. There's several out there that have been doing natives and 100% natives. If you're looking for recommendations, uh, I can send you a list of local ones, but also the Plant Nova Native site in plantnovanatives.org. They've got a bunch of people too that they recommend as well. So, and they do training as well for landscapers. So there's a lot of landscapers that have booked some of those trainings to learn how to use natives more actively. It's called Plant Nova Natives, NOVA, like Northern Virginia. Yeah, and they've got a great book. They sell it at Mildly Gift Shop. We found it at ours. You get
It's mentioned on the land wildlife website. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And there was someone, what is his name? I'm drawing a blank, but he's going around to all the HOAs and really getting the word out of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Lyra, LIRA.org. Hang on. Yeah, Mike Lidman.
Yes, yeah, he did a top bunch thing at our store. It's really informative, and he's done a lot to bring the awareness around to the
Yes, and there's some grant money out there to be had for. So yeah, Zero is an amazing organization. They're working on getting their nonprofit status. So there's somebody to keep an eye on and help out if you can. Yeah.
Well, I think on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.